Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. And we are going to spend most of this morning going over Geneva Watch Days 2023, which has had a number of watch reveals. That event is still ongoing. But normally the way these watch events work is a lot of the watches drop just before or right at the start of the event. So we generally know pretty much everything from day one, and then they have like a 4 or 5 day party or whatever, going over the opportunity for all the media that's present and such to be able to get hands-on time with a lot of these models that were just indicated and released. So obviously we're not there because I am here in the Midwest of the United States, which is not where Geneva is. So we won't be doing that. But what that means we can do is we will get an opportunity to explore what has been revealed already. I've done a few things before this point, so we won't rehash that unless, of course, the live chat is interested in going into more detail than what I've already provided on a couple of things. But just catching up on some stuff real quick before we get going with the meat of the episode. And good morning, Neff. Well, you were in last night. I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that you were there, not that you aren't critically important to the participation, because that's what made it fun. But I have had a few videos this week. As I mentioned, a couple of watch releases I already covered. There's a standalone pre-recorded First Thoughts video on Oris's Aquis Pro, the 4,000 meter ultra chonker dive watch that they've come out with. So you can go check that out if you're interested. I also already did a video talking about my thoughts on Tissot's new digital version of the PRX. So I wasn't planning those for today's episode because I already have things about them. So I've picked 5 watches, and I have article links in the description of this video already there. So even if you're watching live, you can go, if you want to go load them up and look at the photos or read about them later, read about them now if I'm being too boring, anything along those lines. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome to the live stream. And then the other thing I did video-wise this week is last night, in fact, it's probably still processing for final video form, though I think you can always go and play it. I did a 2-hour, almost like 1 hour, 58-minute live stream with 2 panelists, and we did it's not really a game, it was a new format I wanted to experiment with, which I called 3-2-1 Watch Off, because I thought about 3-2-1 Blast Off and just shoehorned it. I don't know, does it work or not? I don't know. It was fun to do the panel. I don't know if it's a great watching experience or not. So I'll wait and see what the feedback is in the comments and such to know if it's something worth repeating. And we did go off on a few tangents. So that's part of the reason why it ran so long. I think because I had estimated probably be an hour to 90 minutes. And I think I need to just start estimating I think 3 people's a good size for it if we're doing 6 watches each. But 90 minutes to 120 seems more accurate. And I know most watch live streams don't seem to go much past an hour. But if it was a fun format, then why not? As long as I can rope, I should say lasso those enough people in who want to participate in it. But anyway, I enjoyed it. But I did have a correction and clarification. It actually wasn't. It does tie to a watch. That's why I'll go ahead. I probably said a whole bunch of stuff that was goofy and dumb. However, one point early on we talked about, and we'll actually go into this watch on today's episode, but I did talk a little bit about Mosier regarding the Vanta Black watches. And I made a snarky aside about the creator of Vanta Black not being a cool dude. That is incorrect. It wasn't the creator. It wasn't the inventor of Vanta Black. There's a guy who invented Vanta Black at a company. I don't know anything about that person. Really quick, and you can research it if you want to know more, but a British artist, his name is Anish Kapoor, bought the exclusive rights to use Vanta Black artistically. That was who I was judging, because they took away the ability for any other artist to use Vanta Black, which a lot of artists had. And I'm not an artist, but I do object to the idea. Imagine if like Picasso said no one else gets to use oil paint. That's what it was, but for Vanta Black. So anyway, I don't even remember how I ever found out about this in the first place, but another British artist, his name is Stuart Semple, came out with a whole bunch of other colors like Pinkest Pink. He has a black 3.0, which is almost as black as Vanta Black. And he lets anyone use it except anyone associated with Anish Kapoor. So there's like this artist feud that's gone on since 2016. You can search for Anesh Kapoor and Stuart Simple if you want to read about it. But anyway, that's what I was remembering. So that's what I was referencing is this Vanta Black for artistic purposes being exclusive. It's a carbon coating. I did also mention that Vanta Black is toxic. That is suspected to be true. Don't inhale it. It's got long. It's like a long strand. It's like asbestos. So anyway, I don't know if you ever walk around just in factories with Vanta Black just in the air, but I would hold my breath if I were you. So I just wanted to get that clarification out of the way. And now we can get ready to go through some of these Geneva Watch Days. In terms of what's on the wrist, I am still wearing the Mosier Pioneer 7 Center Seconds. This is the PVD DLC black coated funky blue dial version. They still make this one. I think the only one I know of in steel that they discontinued was the Midnight Blue, but maybe there are some others. They all look cool. But anyway, we will be talking about Mosier. We won't be talking about their Pioneer line today. So I've chosen 5 watches from Geneva Watch Days. These aren't 5 watches that I like. I've just chose 5 watches that I thought were interesting. And as a reminder, if you find this content interesting and you want to support the channel further, you can always join the 99 Cent Club, which is a whole 99 cents a month. I have a link in the chat and the description. And separate from that, if you like discussions, I do have a Discord. It's free to join. There's a link to that as well. You can run Discord on your phone. You can run it on your computer. And it's like a portable forum software. Is it like Slack? I don't know. I don't use Slack, but let's pretend it kind of is. But Discord's really big in like video gaming, so I was more familiar with it. So that's what we are doing. So let's open with a brand I do own, but I've never owned this particular model of watch, and that is JLC. So Jaeger-LeCoultre has revealed a couple of new dial configurations, and it's actually more than just the dial on the Polaris. So the Polaris is I always think of it as their dive watch line. However, this is specific to their chronograph iterations of these watches. And so they have, you could see some shots here from Rob Report. Again, link is in the description if you want to go and read the actual article and explore this more in depth. But I was seeing if I could actually zoom in on these things. But I see Neff has already asked, please tell me, or actually he declares, he doesn't ask, he just demands that I tell him that they updated the Polaris's movement. Yes, Neff, they did. So the first thing people noticed was the dial, like the dial coloration, because they've got this double gradient thing going on. You know, it kind of fades to black in the center, and then we do the same sort of effect in the front. I finally looked up, because Tony who was on the live stream last night. He had this fondness for this like bead blasted look. Finally looked up like, what's the official term for that? And a lot of times they do bead blasted, but frosted. So it's a frosted dial effect. However, you might be able to tell already from this shot that there's something weird or different than the old Polaris chronographs. This is now a running seconds. This was an hours marker for the chronograph on the original, on the ones that the other ones, and they still have those available. So yes, they have changed the movement because they had to in order to accommodate the fact that they finally decided to let the Polaris chronographs have a running seconds, which apparently has been a big complaint. I kind of get it. I've often thought with mechanical watches, part of the fun is being able to show that they're mechanical. And so running seconds are the easiest way to do that. So they have this gray iteration I just showed you. And they also have this in that kind of, I almost think of it as that stereotypical JLC Polaris blue. You know, they always have to have the blue Polaris. It's probably the more popular one, quite frankly. But you know me and gray. I love gray. So anyway, these are lacquered dials, and there's the Rob Report article has a whole thing about like the 35 coats of lacquer and stuff that they're doing to get the deep, rich hues and stuff. But yeah, so now the watches have the caliber 761. It's a 65-hour power reserve, fully integrated column wheel chronograph, vertical clutch system. It does have finishing on it. I haven't really looked at the old ones. So like it's got Côte de Genève and all of that, blued screws, sort of the stuff you'd sort of expect. The price point, these are 42 millimeter watches, and the price point is not insignificant. As you probably can see, I think I've scrolled down enough. Yes, I have. The gray version is $14,300 US. And if you want the blue version, for whatever reason, it's more. It's $500 more at $14,800. So yes, so they have finally come out with a new movement and a new dial configuration. It's not radical. Like if you liked the format of the old chronograph Polarises, the subdials are in the same position. It's not going to offend you. It's still, I know they've had date versions as well, but these are dateless. So it's time plus chronograph complication only watches. It's still the thin bezel. It's got the tachyometer inside under the crystal. All of that, like all the things most people love about it, are still the same. It's just here. This was the chronograph hours function. This now only goes to the 30 minutes. That's still the same, but they stuck the running seconds in, so you can't time events as long as you could before, but they figured this was probably more in demand. And yeah, you have I don't think this has any photos of the movement, but you can always go and check that out. But I gave you a quick description. It's the caliber 761. So I don't know for what few people have gotten up this morning. And of course, people watching the recording can always leave comments in the leave comments in the I feel like Austin Powers. Allow myself to introduce myself. You can always leave comments in the comments about what you think of this or of the movement itself. Overall, I've never been a Polaris person. I actually tried to check out, not the chronograph, I tried to check out one of the more just traditional dive line ones when I was at our JLC dealer, who's also our Rolex dealer. They didn't have any in stock. They had one in the entire city because they have multiple stores. And they offered to ship it. They actually tried to ship it to the store. So I asked if I'd come back the next day to try it on. And I don't know if they were just desperate to finally sell that thing or what, but no, I did not go that route. But I thought it was interesting because this article does explore this and mentions it right here, was when the Polaris wasn't relaunched all that long ago. It was 2018 and it was under $7,000. And now we are talking about watches that are pushing up in these iterations almost to 15,000. Now, that's not Polaris specific. Richemont has been raising their prices recently, and more specifically, JLC, which is one of the many brands they control, has had very notable price increases. I think a lot of people have detected it the most on the Reversos because that's generally their most popular watch line. But it's not been uncommon lately. I think for the last 3 years, it feels like that JLC's done at least 2 price increases per year. It's I personally think that's pretty extreme. Especially at this stage, I don't think it makes much sense anymore, given I feel like we're in an economic cooling period. But I do like the looks of these watches. I think the double gradient looks good. I think the mix of sunburst in the center ring, and then when you get out towards where the indices are, going to the frosted look, works really well, especially for the gray, where I feel it's more noticeable. Though this blue one probably looks better in bright light. I think you'd probably be able to tell it more. And, the 2 subdial configuration is a very clean look. So overall, I think it's a very, very attractive watch. I would really struggle to want to go in on something like this at, between $14,000 and $15,000 when you think about the retail price on Zenith Chronomaster Sports are coming in at what, $3,000 to $4,000 less. So I think more like $3,000 less. So that's where, I think the competition at this price tier is very, very stiff. And I just don't think the Polaris has the pedigree to command a lot of attention unless you're one of those, if you know, and you've always been into it. And just something about the old movement or the lack of the running seconds because of the old movement was pissing you off and you just couldn't pull the trigger. Maybe this finally gets it over. Of course, I think this is going to hit gray and be readily available probably in 9 months. So, but anyway, I do think it's a very attractive looking watch. So let's see. We have one comment that has come in from Neff saying, I would assume JLC was using a vertical clutch so you could run the chrono all the time without extra wear to the movement. And I don't know if they were or weren't doing that, but this one does have the vertical clutch. So, so yes, I know a lot of people do prefer the vertical clutch. So yes, I guess feel free to let the chrono run all the time if you want. Neff does also comment that it is still a tiny movement. The subdials are way too close together. Looks odd to me. Well, if you have problems with tiny movements, I got another watch coming up later today where I think you're going to be like, what is this, a movement for ants? Because it's going to be kind of, at least it was noticeable to me. And that's one of the things I'm not quick on the draw on. I can, if you point it out to me, especially if it's an exhibition case pack, I can go, wait a moment, there's a whole lot of case before we actually get to the movement. But it's not usually the first thing that I identify with. But there was one today and I was like, wow, that's time. Well, but we'll get to it. But first, so we start with JLC. kind of mid-tier luxury brand price. Let's jump. Although this is going to be the most expensive. I don't even know how much this watch is, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be the most expensive one of the day. Let's jump to a brand I basically never talk about because I don't really like their watches very much, and that's De Bethune. So De Bethune is an ultra high-end, like independent watch maker. They've kind of, it feels like they've had a second renaissance, but I think a lot of this is because I like to watch Tim Masso's Watchbox channel for his discussions, and Watchbox has a pretty large stake in De Bethune at this point as owners. It feels like those are getting promoted a lot more. So I'm seeing them more than I think I otherwise would. The algorithms for Dennis wouldn't normally push De Bethune on me because while I love Star Trek as a show, I've never wanted like an ultra 6-figure watch with the Star Trek emblem on it. And I can never get past that. That is what a lot of these look like. De Bethune actually does have a lot more conventional watches as well. It's not all this avant-garde stuff, but this is just too avant-garde for me. So generally, I've never been into these DB like 28s and all that. So, but still an interesting watch. So I wanted to talk about it. So this is a limited watch. I don't remember the count, but I know it's listed in the article. So we will get to that. But as you can see, the main thing is that this is a heat blued titanium. That's how they get this blue effect. They actually, they took the technology that people would do with iron and steel and heat it to blue. That works for titanium as well. But of course, the effect is a little bit different because the properties of the metal are a little bit different. This is also an ultra thin watch. So this case is 43 millimeters, but I think the thickness is, there it is. It's 8.5 millimeters. So 43 millimeters across with a thickness of 8.5 millimeters. So it's very light because again, it's mostly made out of titanium. Got rose gold hands. Most of the rest of this dial is actually made out of titanium. Some of the movement parts are made out of titanium. They're very interested in those sort of things. It does use a silicon escape wheel. So they've got a blue titanium bridge that holds the balance. You can actually see that through the dial here. So that's titanium as well. So it's really impressive. What I do like the crown at 12. I think that suits this style of watch. So for me, because it feels, it's too much of a skeleton vibe, and I don't like skeletonized watches in general. Like this, being able to see the double mainspring barrels and all of that with the Star Trek shields never has clicked for me. Though I can respect the engineering and the design effort that has gone into it. It's just, as is usual for me, it's just too avant-garde. But this is one of the big reveals. Their big reveal with Geneva Watch Days. You've got the guilloche. You've got a lot of crafted decoration going on with this. I don't know how much this is. It's 25 piece limited. So the price hasn't been confirmed at the time, but here are the specifications if you were curious about it. So, comes on an alligator strap. They do, of course, in-house movement, manual wind, which isn't too surprising given the 8.5 millimeters. Though, of course, they could have gone micro rotor, I suppose. 6-day power reserve. So even that's pretty impressive too. Lots of titanium parts, as I mentioned. And then the whole dial is like made out of blue titanium with these rose gold accents. So I thought it looks okay for this style. I myself can't ever get into the style, but I wanted to point it out because it was one of those Geneva Watch Day things that I think this model line has done fairly well for. Honestly, I don't know anymore. De Bethune was in trouble, and I think that's why they got new ownership. I don't know if this approach that they're doing is really working or not. But getting into De Bethune, like entry-level, what is entry-level De Bethune? I don't even know if we can really use the word entry-level De Bethune. I don't think I've ever seen a watch of theirs used under 50,000. So I don't know. There are other high-end brands that are a little more conservative in their design aesthetic that I would turn to if I had that kind of cash to drop. But anyway, it was interesting, so I wanted to go ahead and point it out. So De Bethune is at Geneva Watch Days, and they're kind of doing I think that's a play off of another watch they already had. I think they just did something like the metal's different or something. Tuna has joined on the live stream saying better late than never. It's one is never truly late. The recording already, well, unless I destroy the recording, but I don't know. I don't think this one's gone off the rails yet. So we maybe won't destroy this one. Will we destroy 3, 2, 1 watch off? Probably not, because I don't think there was anything too awful other than some really dumb jokes. But it was a really long episode, so maybe I should go and edit like the first 10 minutes out just to speed it up. I don't know. I thought about it last night, and then I played it back at 2x to go, well, maybe it flows okay. I don't know. At 2x, everything seems to flow pretty well. And speaking of watches that flow well, our next one will actually be talking about Mosier and those Vanta Black corrections I had earlier in the episode. Though I do see Neff has said that he cannot get behind a Bethune, regardless of Tim's hype train. Yes, they are very well made. Just the look is bleh. I think that's how that emoji is pronounced, is bleh. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I almost want to just take the dial and clip them on, and so they can just be the little like next gen. What do they call those things? No, because it replaced the flippy flips. I'm not using proper Star Trek terms, and I'm feeling really dumb now because everyone's I can feel your judgment. Like the communicator. Yeah, it's the communicator. There we go. Communicator. That's what it should be. The Debethune should be communicators, but they'd have to be a lot more affordable because you can't be handing those out to every ensign and saying, hey, yeah, it's like $150,000, Speaking of something that's under $150,000, Mosier. So Mosier has revealed 2 new Endeavor watches. The Endeavor line is an old line. It's kind of their dress watch line. Old for them. And so this isn't the first in the style that we've seen. However, they've gone ahead and taken Vanta Black, which is something that Mosier has been, I won't even say experimenting. They've just been using it for a little while now. So they've gone ahead and taken that and they've applied it to their Endeavor line. So they have 2 iterations of this watch. They have a center seconds version, which you can now see here, with actual hour markers, which for those who watched yesterday know that's what I generally prefer. So it's the time only. And then they also have a no marker, just hour, minute, and then flying tourbillon. So in both cases, I'm Austin powering this up all over the place. The cases are in rose gold, as you can see, as are the hands. And Vanta Black is the dial color. So bear in mind with photos, because photos your screens can't get the darkness that Vanta Black is. Vanta Black it's very flat because it absorbs almost all light. It doesn't really reflect light. So it's like, I guess, not to make it too philosophical, it's staring into the void. You're staring into the void with Vanta Black. So just bear in mind that what you see on the screen, it's blacker than that. It's that's about the only way I could describe it with words. It's blacker than what the photos will tell you. So anyway, I do think these are very attractive. I think tourbillons don't appeal to me in wristwatches. I think as cool as they are to watch move around, they're so gimmicky that I've never been with the logical part of my brain can't get over that. It's like a gimmick that doesn't really help the watch at all. So I'm not in general a fan of tourbillons, especially because they tend to add a tremendous amount to the price tag for, in my mind, no arguably good reason other than, I suppose, if you're into the visual entertainment of it. But there are other things I could just as easily, in my mind, it's not as cool, but that's what an exhibition case back and you staring at the balance is for. So anyway, but I'm mulling, as I often do. So, and of course I prefer watches with markers because, well, yeah, I can tell this is 1010, but that's what they put all the watches in the photos in. Would I be able to tell if it's 1018 versus, no, you can't, not really. So anyway, these are 40 millimeter watches. I believe the tourbillon's actually thinner than the three-hander. The three-hander is 11.2 millimeters thick. So not traditional dress watch thin, but it's not a thick watch. You could wear it as a dress watch, which is what the design is. These are 30 meters of water resistance. And then the one with the tourbillon, I think, is 0.1 millimeters smaller, maybe. I'm not sure. This is a blog to watch, so they're not going to have the specs summarized at the bottom. I wish they would do that. It's more than 0.1. It's 10.7 millimeters thick. So the tourbillon's significantly thinner. Again, 40 millimeter case. So anyway, so those are if you want to take a look at the movement, there you go. This is obviously the flying tourbillon movement iteration. But overall, I think these are very attractive. I do like the three-hander quite a bit. And price-wise, that three-hander is not ridiculous. The three-hander is $27,600, and the tourbillon is $82,500. So with the three-hander, that's positioning it right in that range with like the Rolex, 1908. You've got the Calatrava, which is in the low to mid 30,000 new. It's like around $34,000 new. So, and the reason I mention that is that's kind of this approach, right? If you're going for a watch like this, you're already in the realm of like thinking, oh, maybe I want a Vacheron Patrimony, or I want a Calatrava, or I want the 1908, or I want the Saxonia. You're looking at this Calatrava, not Bauhaus, but Bauhaus inspired style simplified. So in my mind, this watch is for those that want that basic format. I'm really talking the three-hander specifically. You like the Calatrava, but rather than wanting dial decoration with like a particular approach on the guilloche or whatnot, the Vanta Black gimmick is what you would prefer. Like, I just want this to be the void. Like, you look into it and you don't see your soul anymore. So and at this price point, it's still cost competitive as a dress watch with all those other ones. Now, given this is Mosier, this probably ends up taking a bath on the secondhand market because Mosiers, generally speaking, don't hold the value very well. So once these get out more, you might be able to find a decent deal. I don't know how many they're going to make. Mosier makes about 2,000 watches a year. So that's the other thing, though, is they don't produce a lot. But that being said, if you wanted something just like you like the idea of the Calatrava, and I always use the Calatrava because that's the granddaddy that all these other ones are iterated off of. I could see you going and saying, yeah, no, I'd rather have the Vanta Black. That's going to make it fun. Another thought would be, because this is like in the 40 millimeter range, like if you're looking like you prefer bigger watches, but you don't want to go like I think the Vacheron Patrimony is like 42 millimeters. If that's just like a little too big for you, you don't want to go full IWC Portugueser. Maybe this, which isn't much smaller, significantly bigger than what like you're going to get out of Longa or Patek, though. That might also be another reason. Like, you're looking for a simple Calatrava-esque dress watch and you want one on the larger side. This would be one of those. This has more presence, especially given that the thinness is over 10 millimeters. So I think both of these, I'm not in the Tourbillon camp, as I noted, but I think both of these are going to be very good releases for Mosier. I don't know how their Endeavor lined up. Like, I've looked at Endeavors, but I've never looked at Endeavors. Like, I've never shopped for them because I already had dress watches. So when I was looking at Mosier, that's why I went with the Pioneer, which the Pioneers trade for less than the Endeavors. I think on the used market, they start about, I want to estimate maybe 5,000 more than the Pioneers. So it's not an insignificant price jump, though you can find Endeavors under 20,000 used. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of like, I think this is a dress watch for people who want to go beyond. Obviously, in this day and age, we generally go beyond like the 35, 36 millimeter size for most dress watches. Even Patek is making bigger ones than that at this stage. But this is much more going on the large end of the scale. So, but if that's your style, but you want like the traditional dress watch elements, but just blown up like an IWC, I think this is going to be the appeal. That's one audience. And the other audience is, I want a rose gold dress watch with the void as the dial. And no one else that I know of in the watch industry is using Vanta Black. So if you want that and you want it in a dress watch, this is your only choice. So that would be the other reason. But overall, I think this is an extremely attractive watch. I'd like to see it in person, but rose gold and black, they just work together. So there are plenty, like you can see Longas in rose gold, or they call it pink gold, with black dials like Longa ones and stuff. So this will just be blacker than that, but there are plenty of black dress watches with rose gold. So if you've ever seen one and you thought, oh yeah, that looks attractive, then you're almost definitely going to like this. The only off chance that I think you wouldn't, size aside, of course, would be if you end up in person finding the Vanta Black too flat for you. Like, if you like glossy and not matte, this is going to be so matte. It can't really be described. You'll have to see it. It's just, there's almost no reflected light back. So it's extremely flat. So if you're into shiny black, this is not the watch for you. But I think it'd have a really good contrast with the shine of the gold. But that's just my guess. So Neff says in the live chat, oh, I love that center. I will try again, Neff, because I don't want to butcher your well-crafted sentence. Oh, I love that center seconds. Stunning. Yes, it's very good. It's definitely my favorite. I just like the gold. It just adds an extra gilt effect to have those hour markers applied to that dial. They're still mostly just black, so it's still almost all dial. And Tuna notes 40 millimeters is a bit large, but in black, that is a very pretty watch. And who knows, if there's enough demand for it, maybe Mosier would end up eventually making a slightly smaller version. I say slightly because I don't know if they can ever bring themselves to make a small watch. But for example, the Pioneers have been running almost 43 millimeters. I think they're 42.8, but they did come up with that Arctic Blue one, which is like 40. So, they ended up shaving almost 3 millimeters off. So maybe if they had enough success, they would maybe go down to 38 or 37 and a half. 37 and a half is like the Longa 1 size. So I think I would prefer to see it a little smaller too. I just think dress watches don't need to be 40 millimeters unless, of course, you're an individual with a very large wrist. And I see where people would feel like it just wears too. It's just in today's environment, people feel that it would wear too small. So, it all just depends. We all have our own views. Speaking of views, I got 2 more watches that I plan to discuss. And feel free if you have a watch that you want me to cover to suggest it. But the next one will be the brand Bulgari. I was going to say Bulgari, but because they spell the U with a V, or at least this article did. I know they do on the logo too, but most of the times, like in the text searches, they put it like a regular U. Oh, and speaking of talking about watches in black, Koji, welcome to the live stream, Koji. He was present in last night's long discussion. Venezianico Redentore, Redentore, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry, also makes a type of Vanta black. It's called Ultra Black from a Japanese color designer. And earlier, if you missed the start, last night in the live stream, I made a snarky comment about the artist who invented Vanta black not being a cool dude. And I had to correct that. It wasn't the inventor. It's the British artist Kapoor I had read about, who bought the exclusive artistic rights to Vanta black. And that was a move that a lot of artists were upset about. But another artist who also British named Stewart, I think is his last name. He's invented, like he has a black called Black 3.0. It's almost as dark as Vanta black. So that's another black option. Again, I don't know if they can do dials in it because Vanta black's like a carbon coating thing. And this is more like in the war of I don't know. I'm not an artist. There's a war of painters and sculptors and stuff. And those 2 British artists have gone at it for a while. But anyway, that British artist Stewart has invented other things like Pinkest Pink and stuff like that. And he has the one rule that Kapoor can't use his colors, but everyone else in the world can. So it's just like this weird feud. I still can't remember how I ever fell down that rabbit hole and read about that, but I read about it, so it's part of it stuck in my head. But Kapoor did not invent Vanta black. That was invented at a company by someone else, and he bought the exclusive rights to it for artistic purposes. So that may not affect what Mosier is doing per se. So, but thank you, very interesting. Ultra black. Koji also says, I think Redentore does a model both in 40 millimeter and 36 millimeter. That would be cool. That's a really good range. That's kind of like what Christopher Ward and the 12 with what they have the new 36, but what was the other size? Was it a 40? Is the original 12 a 40? Or is it more? Is it a 41, 42? I don't remember. But I think it can make a lot of sense if you can execute on it. I don't know if this makes a lot of sense. So you guys in the chat, or if you're watching the recording, you tell me, does this work or not? I haven't decided yet. So Bulgari, Octa Finissimo, not a new watch line. Very, very thin dress watches. Bulgari's more known as a jeweler than as a watchmaker. However, they've, you can't, well, I guess you're a person. You can do what you want, but you're not supposed to say no until I like build it up. And then you're just like, no, it doesn't work. But just close your eyes and imagine. No, you guys are being very nice to Bulgari. The charcoal briquette. Look, this has got rose gold on it. We just talked about Mosier and the rose gold on the Vanta black. Now we've got rose gold on the carbon, what they call carbon gold. Though I don't think there's any gold in the carbon, so that seems like a misnomer. And it's all one word, carbon gold. So anyway, all right. So this article, again, all the articles are linked in the video description, so you guys can go and read them and enjoy the photos to your heart's content. So there are 2 new Octa Finissimos that came out. One is a time only, like this. This is the running seconds. It's at the 7:30 position. I guess that's a Bulgari thing. So we got that. Again, Oh, look, they got a little gold plate here, but the gold's not like mixed into the carbon. Well, that I'm noting that because that's going to come up later. But again, octafinissimo, so very, very thin. I think these are just under 7 millimeters thick. Micro rotor, so it's an automatic movement. We got these gold bridges. Let's see, 60-hour power reserve. Yes, case. The caliber is 2.23 millimeters, and no one really cares what the caliber size is. The case is what everyone cares about. Case thickness, 6.9 millimeters. So that's the time only. And then they also have a perpetual calendar, much busier dial. You've got the carbon, forged carbon case, the rose gold accents for your markers and your crown and all of that. And that's not much thicker. That's 7.6 millimeters. So very, very thin. Price wise, these are extremely high, as you would probably guess. Here's the watch specification summary, so you can read about them. Forged carbon is, I know it's a little different than some of the other carbon methods. There are different ways to work with carbon. The bracelet's also carbon. So the perpetual calendar is 100,000 euros. It's about the same in dollars, I think, if you do the conversion. And it's 29,000 euros for just the time only automatic. I don't know. I've toyed around with the idea of maybe wanting to experiment with carbon, not in a luxury watch, has always been my thing. Because it's black and gray, I get the idea of doing the rose gold, because as we saw with the Vanta Black, rose gold looks good with black. I think it looks good with gray too. So I don't necessarily find this obscene looking in the same way as some other watches might for me, but carbon fiber to me looks very toy-like, very industrial. So toy-like maybe is a little demeaning. It makes it sound like it's a kid's watch. I mean more like, like how a G-Shock looks like it's plastic and rubber, and it's supposed to, because that's like, it's meant to do stuff. This is jewelry, so I don't you don't need why would you want a perpetual calendar in forged carbon? But separate from all of that, here's the thing, and I'm not a chemical engineer. If you're a chemical engineer, please explain it to me if I'm incorrect in this, in chat or in the comments. So resin is used to bind this material together. All these carbon things, forged carbon, the other, whatever, however they do carbon fiber, I think in all instances is bound with a resin. I don't know if long-term if and how that will hold up in UV exposure. So I've already heard people report on cheaper carbon, now not forged carbon, but forged carbon I looked up online. It said it was still a resin process. So that about it delaminating, I guess maybe be the term, but the resin breaking down and strands and parts of the case and the bracelet and stuff coming up on older carbon watches. Is that going to happen to my 100,000 euro perpetual calendar Bulgari that everyone in the chat loves? Is that going to happen to that because it was out in the sun? Is this material actually meant for long-term watch usage? And again, not obviously this isn't a dive watch, but I'm reminded of, what was it? The sub that went down to the Titanic that was carbon fiber, and its structural integrity was compromised by now granted that was going into a very, very compressive atmosphere essentially, and then coming back to the surface, and that was fatiguing it. But I don't know if changes in temperature, changes in UV exposure, what that's going to do to this composite material that's held together with glue. That's my question. So that's my big problem with the idea of a luxury carbon. I don't think that this material is proven to be able to hold up long term. And what limited information I have heard from people that have owned long-term carbon fiber watches, it does not sound good if they've actually been wearing them regularly. I think it's a cool look as a material for like a sports watch. If it's inexpensive, I wouldn't care. I don't see why you pay 5 figures, much less 6, and take the chance on such a weird material. Whereas we know metal will endure. We know, even people are skeptical in some instances of ceramic, but we have other things made out of ceramic that we know that it can hold up in the sun. I don't know about plastic. And that's what I feel carbon fiber is kind of like. It's not really plastic. And the issue is the resin. It's not the actual materials in the mix. But anyway, I thought I'd bring that one up. I do see that those of you in the chat have a number of opinions. Mr. Tuna says, the Octo is an amazing watch, but I agree with Neff. The carbon just looks dirty and misplaced. And Neff says, odd. They made an ultralight carbon case, but then drop a solid gold movement in it. I would have liked to have seen a titanium movement or something to keep it super light. And then Koji adds, admittedly, I kind of liked the green sort of jade looking one they made for Only Watch, but this, well, in your defense, Koji, the green one from Only Watch isn't carbon fiber. That's made out of marble. They carved that out of marble. So that's a stone watch. So I wouldn't be worried about like the UV exposure on that, because they actually took rock and then like shaped that and made the bracelet and everything. It's really cool. Actually, a really cool concept that they did. But yeah, compared to, I've never seriously really looked much at the Octo Finissimos, but you can see these other ones like the titanium ones and stuff. They do look a lot cleaner and maybe fit the aesthetic more than these new versions. But anyway, yeah, not for me, but I'm just really concerned about the material. But yeah, and I think one of the podcasts I listened to, Koji mentioned like they wondered if like this was their attempt to kind of get that marbling look, because carbon fiber has a marbling look, in a more affordable, easy to manufacture way than doing the actual let's make a whole line of watches out of marble. But yeah, in fact, I'm typing because I was gonna load it up because I remember seeing some photos of it, but let's see. There we go. We'll go right to Only Watch. Well, we'll take a detour. For those that don't know, here, we'll accept these cookies. This is what Koji is referring to. So here it is. Unique Ultra Octo Finissimo. It is, let's see, 40 millimeter DLC treated titanium case and bracelet. So that's they forged it in titanium. So not all carved out. So I was wrong about that. Covered with a Verde de Alpi marble. So they've coated it in marble. Somehow they've encased the titanium case in marble, and the bracelet too. I thought maybe they'd case something in the bracelet. I couldn't remember though. But yeah, they somehow got the carbon like clad to it. So anyway, very, very cool. I don't know how thick this watch is overall. The movement isn't even 2 millimeters. I think they used an even smaller movement. But let's see. Green marble used, named Verde de Alpi, comes from the Aosta Valley between Switzerland and Italy through the Alps. All this stuff. Inspiration was the marble floors and stuff of the Roman times. So anyway, very, very interesting. 6.9 millimeters. So yeah, no, this is very cool. It even came in a marble looking box, but they even have some photos of kind of what they did. That's neat. So yeah, no, this one was one of the really popular Only watches, but yeah, they actually used real marble. That's not gonna delaminate. It's not carbon. So speaking of delamination, let me just click right over and go to my last watch I had for you all today. So we were talking about forged carbon. How could I leave off Girard-Perregaux, right? I know I haven't done an Audemars Piguet today, which is normally when I start bringing up Girard-Perregaux. However, we already last weekend talked about the dead person in the lawn chair watch that AP, I don't know what AP is doing, but I didn't want to talk about him today. Granted, I just now mentioned them, but here we go. So this is Girard-Perregaux's Laureato Absolute chronograph with 8-Tech technology. Now, if you're like me, you're like saying, what is 8-Tech, Dennis? And I'm like, I don't know. I read about it this morning, and now I've talked so much, I'm already starting to blank. But you'll notice this looks a bit different in the patterning, the texturing, versus what we just talked about with Bulgari, or if you're familiar with other carbon watches. And the reason is that 8-Tech involves titanium. And unlike that carbon gold, as they called it, Bulgari, carbon gold, the titanium's actually mixed in to the carbon batch of stuff that they're fiberizing here. So I think, as it was explained, I think this article does walk through what they did. Now, I want you to know, this is a huge watch. This is 44 millimeters. So this is a chonker. It's carbon. As I mentioned, it's carbon, but not carbon fiber in the traditional sense. It's carbon titanium. So they take, it's pretty much like how they make carbon fiber, but they pour titanium powder into the mix. And then what happens is you get these really thin sheets and then they get layered together. And then you get this shape. They mill it just like they would mill carbon fiber, but kind of like the Damascus steel look, you get these wavy, shiny strands throughout it because of that powdered titanium that was poured into the mix. And so that's what GP decided to do here with this version of the Laureato. And so you see that's what they ended up doing. So it's a chronograph. It's got all the usual stuff, 46-hour power reserve. This is a $27,800 watch compared to the 42 millimeter entry Laureato, which is $14,300. So this is more than a $10,000 delta. It's more like a $13,000 delta between getting into a Laureato and getting into a Tech 8 Laureato. Now, we talked about movement size earlier. You notice something about this case and the case back and the size of the movement? Because me and Pepperidge Farm noticed. And this is not a movement sized for this watch. This is baby's first movement. It's like a movement for ants that they just went ahead and tossed into this giant 44 millimeter watch. I was really surprised to see just how much case back this is before we actually get to the display sapphire for the exhibition. Just absolutely weird to me. Weird choice, given the price, given we're almost at $30,000. So anyway, here's I do like this image that this is Hodinkie's article, but I do like this side by side from this. I did a video on this one earlier this year, but this will let you see what carbon fiber looks like versus this Tech 8 with the titanium carbon fiber. So you can see, this is just so you can see the difference. So you get that marbling look, but I will say the titanium powder does make, I think, a nicer marbling look than just plain carbon fiber. This looks very much more haphazard, almost like scar tissue getting laid down when your body, I guess you don't normally see your scar tissue when your body heals, but that's how I envision the scar tissue, just kind of mishmashed healing on someone. Whereas this, the Damascus steel analogy, it does look better. Now, whether you like it or not, I mean, it's still a milled thing. It's still carbon fiber. It's like, it reminds me of, this is mean, but we can't help it at this point. It reminds me of the Moon swatch or some of the other swatches, and they talk about bioceramic, and it's like they pour some like ceramic pellets in, but the mix is still mostly plastic. So this is still a thing that gets poured, and then they like shave it down and mill it like plastic, but it's got chunks of titanium. It's like got 2 scoops of raisins, got 2 scoops of titanium in to give it this weird textured look. So anyway, that's sort of the visual side by side there, which I did appreciate them doing that photo. But again, 44 millimeters, 15.15 millimeters thick. That's not excessive for a chronograph, but I mean, I'm just saying it's not a small watch. I like this carbon titanium composite. That's a very generous way to describe it. Accurate, but maybe implies some durability that might not be there. Gray dial, of course, 100 meters of water resistance, all of that stuff. And yes, that movement with a almost 26 millimeter diameter movement in this 44 millimeter watch. Here's another great photo to let you really enjoy just how small that baby's first movement is. There's baby's first movement. I don't know, guys. In some ways, I guess I like the case look better than what we saw with the Bulgari Octafinissimo carbon golds. But overall, I might like this watch less. I don't know. The movement thing, the lack of care, this is part of the reason why I'm getting extra salty this morning. This is part of the reason why I can't get into GP. There's always something about their decision making that annoys me. And I always, in a way, I guess I just end up always looking down on some decision they do on like every single watch that they make. And the comments, I think some of the things you guys have said in the chat, I'll actually scroll down to them in a moment because I did take a quick look at them this morning too. But catching up on the chat, I'll leave us on our favorite photo here so you can enjoy the movement. I've decided collectively for us that this is the one that we want to look at. We've got things like, let's see, what are you all saying? Neff says, this carbon is not a great fad. This looks like a Hublot. That's going to come up in the comments. I know it will. It has to. It has to. Koji says, I'm not a stickler for the movement to case ratio, but that's ludicrous. Neff goes, carbon plus titanium is almost certainly what caused the titanium sub to implode. Apparently mixing vastly different materials is hard. And again, this is still a composite forged carbon fiber process. All my things I brought up with Bulgari and whether or not the resin can be sustained multi-year in UV exposure and stuff, all that stuff's still true. I don't know if the glue that holds this together lasts. I'm not a chemical engineer. If a chemical engineer could tell us like long-term what has happened with carbon fibers. I don't think adding titanium makes it any more or less sturdy. I'm just in general concerned that carbon fiber doesn't hold up, especially after hearing so many people say like strands have started to come off of their watches that are made out of this stuff. So I don't know. Neff says, you need a loop just to find the movement. That's a go. That's joke of the day so far. That one is clearly the winner. Koji says, just use a closed case back. As cheap as carbon fiber is, you'd think they could just go ahead and do it and save some money versus the sapphire. I don't know. Maybe with the titanium sprinkles in, if we're putting it on like sugar on our Rice Krispies, maybe that makes it more expensive. I don't know. Tuna says, too large, too wacky for GP. And Koji laughs at the fact that is the 25 millimeter movement. Now, I mentioned the comments on Hodinkee. Does Hodinkee have toxic comments? Come on, it's the internet. All comments are toxic. So we got to explore some of this. So we have someone here saying that they think the material is superb, but the price isn't. So remember, this is $27,800 for a Laureato watch, which is not what they trade for typically, at least not entry-level ones. Of course, complications modify things. Here's one that will play right to Neff and Koji's comments. God, that minuscule caliber. And somehow they chose to show it through an exhibition case back. This truly is a watch for those not in the know. I do like that a lot. Oh, I mentioned Hublot, or someone above mentioned Hublot, which I quoted. It was Neff's comment that we had here, that it looks like an Hublot. A wannabe of something that nobody wants, based on tremendous amount of Hublot memes in circulation. A sign of despair. A Laureato is not a Hublot. I thought they were something better, but perhaps I was wrong. Another Hublot comlet. You can get a Hublot Unico for half the price, which is 100% better. Is a 100% better watch in every way. 2005 called it. It wants their AP's poor cousin back. That one's more for me because I appreciate it. That's not my comment, but I'm not Yev. Gosh, what other ones? I thought this was the ugliest watch I've ever seen. That is until I saw the carbon-cased Octo Finissimos. Geneva Watch Days needs a mulligan. From the Hublot vaults. Oh, so like 20% of these comments are Hublot comparisons. So it's just one of those things. As Koji notes, reading these quips and insults, I can only be thankful I didn't get destroyed in the comment section. No, in some ways, I would recommend never reading the comment section about one of your own creations because it might be bad. I've generally seen, I don't always look at the comment sections because it's the articles that I need for the information. But when I see like collection reviews and stuff, they're usually gentler. When it's a manufacturer, gloves are off. It's time for combat. But I mean, I guess we could take comfort in the fact that there were only like, I'm looking right now, 15 comments. There are only 15 comments. That's not that bad. Go to Fratello sometime and look at they have one of their editors sometimes will say something really kind of outlandish, like, there's no point to mechanical watches that are under $1,000 because the movements just get replaced. And then there's like 200 comments just trashing him. So though that's a true like blood sport level comment section, that if you want to feed off of just like toxic comments, that's what you need to go into, is those almost clickbait style articles. These ones, there's always someone being like, oh, it's a cash grab. Oh, it's a poor man's AP, which has kind of been my stance on GP because so much of this stuff feels like it's wannabe Royal Oaks at least more affordable pricing. This though, $30,000. I don't know, whatever. Your mileage may vary, of course, as we love to say. Neff goes, it's really bad. Not as bad as Audemars Piguet's "You Don't Know Who My Dad Is" Royal Oak, but almost. Yes, I can't remember. I think it was Dave. I was listening to a blog to watch weekly, and on the podcast, one of the hosts was going on, and they went ahead and they covered, I'm going to air quote that, they covered the new APs that I talked about last weekend that I wasn't going to bring up about this weekend because I felt so bad about how I thought I was hard on them, but I wasn't. Compared to what I have since heard and read, I was actually pretty nice. And the way he described it, he didn't rant for a very long period. He described it as a rant, though, but it was really good. I would recommend hearing it. And I'm navigating to this watch because it was funny, and why not? I've still got a few minutes before an hour anyway, and I like to go an hour. So here's what we are talking about. I brought it back out of the vaults, folks. Here you go. It's the Royal Oak 1017 Alex 9S. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. The way he described it was basically the worst of AP, trying to appeal to a new demographic of young folks. And so the way they've gone ahead and done it is they came up with this. This is my favorite photo. This is the dead person in a lawn chair with the gold watch, plastic lawn chair. They're dead. You can tell by how their hands hang in there. That body's getting cold. That person died of cringe is my theory. And anyway, what the guy said was essentially, it was kind of like what Neff wrote, but it was more of this is the ultimate trust fund baby, men's jewelry. I don't know what a watch's purpose is, but it's not telling the time. Abomination that has cheapened the brand, and shown that AP has lost its way, not only in the decision to make a watch that isn't a watch at all, but to do it on the skeleton structure of the Royal Oak, an icon of watch design, and now to cheapen it to the degree that you would just turn it into a fashion watch, an overpriced fashion watch. That was kind of his rant. And I just because this is my favorite one, with the chrono hands. You can't tell anything. Why did they say it's not that someone came up with this? Okay, so they partnered with some Swiss streetwear designer or something to come up with this, right? Okay, fine. A streetwear designer would think this is cool for a jewelry perspective. It's fine. All of that is fine. I have to go because I love movies and TV. I have to go to the classic Jurassic Park. They were so busy asking if they could. They never stopped to ask if they should. I think that's the problem with this watch. And I don't mean the streetwear designer. I mean Audemars Piguet. At some point, are they not going to say, no, we have a reputation? Are they not going to say, you know what? This is something for the code 1159 to do. Even if they want to say yes, does that mean you say yes on the Royal Oak? I thought this was their precious. I thought they were the Schmiegel, and this is their precious. The Royal Oak is the precious, and now the precious is turned into some regular old ring. That's not, Sauron wouldn't approve. No way. This is not this, because this has no purpose. There's no function to this. It's just a pretty trinket. So, yeah. Anyway, I actually thought a couple days ago about at the end of I did this last year. I didn't get very many views, which is just as well because it was kind of toxic, but I thought about doing another worst watches of 2023 because I think I did one in 2020. Maybe it was 2021, but this watch has to be number one currently. This has got to be the biggest mistake. I love this watch so much though. I'm so glad that this came into my life because I haven't laughed so much at a watch this entire year until last weekend's video and going through all of this and just everything about all of these. It has brought me such joy that I'm actually glad that they did it. It might destroy their company. Look at this is another that's also got pointed out on that podcast. This is an official AP photo that was provided to them. They didn't stage this because no watch journalist would. What does this even mean? Who decided, yes, let's market our gold watch on a set of metal keys on a ring hooked to, I don't think this is a chain link fence. I don't know. This is some sort of net or something, but that doesn't matter. Why is it a key ring? So when if someone if some trust fund baby buys this watch and does this with it, because AP just said you can do this with this. This is their PR photo. And then the watch gets all scratched up. Are they going to polish it for free? Is that part of the service? I don't understand. But this is great. I still prefer the dead body in a lawn chair because there's some creeper thing going on with that. But that AP did this and sent this photo out tells me everything that AP has totally lost the plot. That's what it tells me. Totally lost the plot. The first time I saw this photo, I thought they were beating up this person. Like, I've seen all these hands everywhere. I thought they're all punching this person. Like, there's this hand and this hand. I think that's this person's hand. I'm not sure. I don't know what they're doing. But I thought it could be violence. Maybe this could be a knuckle duster like Rolex was in the Ian Fleming books. But some of these photos, this is my favorite. So that's the one I wanted to end on. That's my favorite. So, yeah. Dead from a spice overdose, says Neff. And I unfortunately, I immediately went to Shai Hulud and Arrakis spice, not spice, slang spice. So I was just like, oh no, we just lost the Kizar Cataract, put on this watch and OD'd. And that's how Dune ended, and we didn't need two parts then. So there would have been that. Koji, AP, Royal Oak, Desert Watch. Yes. Oh, Neff says, you have to remember this is a Holy Trinity watch from a Trinity brand. It's an affront to horology. That's the thing. And that's where the rant on the podcast, the Blog to Watch podcast was coming from, was just like, this isn't TAG. Okay. This is Audemars Piguet. Remember they used to do high horology. Now they do this. Lawn chairs. They want their watch. This is their official photo. They want their watch associated with the cheap plastic lawn chair. Like, I sit out in lawn chairs like this for the 4th of July. I'm very familiar. My bottom is very familiar with resting in these uncomfortable chairs. I know about these chairs. I don't know. Tuna says, AP went gangsta years ago. Koji says, I guess it's the ultimate expression of form over function. That is the diplomatic way of describing the watch. Absolutely. Tuna says, AP went ghetto years back. So a lot of people feel it's kind of the gangster style. Are we thinking like the gangster rap style look with the blingy watches? I mean, it's not encrusted in diamonds, so I don't know. Koji, April 1st, is it? No, not yet, sadly. Neff goes, it's a Harkonnen watch. I don't know. Would the Baron wear something like this? I think the Baron would want something more functional. But maybe he would. But anyway, that is it for today's live stream. We weren't going to go over. Will this AP show up on every episode that I do on Saturdays? I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe we're finally tired of it. We have to get tired of laughing at some stage, I would think. But I don't know. I do enjoy laughing at things. So anyway, that is it for today. I will say, I see a comment from Sky Pinball. You always hang your watch while on the chicken fence while gathering eggs. Yes, it's just the way of it, because you don't want to get it dirty. So you have to set it. It's kind of like when you're getting ready to work on the car and you take off your watch and you're like, what am I going to do with it? And you're like, I got to hang it with my keys though, right? I just think of it as, all right, so they don't use a key fob. Whoever this is doesn't use a key. I mean, maybe this looks like a car key, though. So, all right, they don't have a key fob. All right, maybe they drive an older car. I get it. But this has become the key. I thought this became like the keychain, thing. Like I don't have it anymore because I just stopped my job on Thursday. So I used to have my work keys on a pinball like nylon strap thing. It's like that. It's the keychain, right? It's a keychain. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, I don't know what next Saturday's video will be planned to be. I'll come up with something. I'll try to, at least for consistency reasons. And we'll probably have a few other watches maybe from Geneva. I don't know. Most of them have been revealed. We'll see what I feel like doing. But probably have a review of the Mosier Pioneer in between now and then. Because Tuesday will probably be the week-long kind of date of me wearing it. So I usually will push it out at that point. And other than that, I don't have anything else to say. If you haven't had a chance yet and you want to, check out last night's live stream video. I don't know if it's completely done processing. It is about 2 hours long, so maybe play it at 1.5x. But I have David, Dennis, and Tony on, and we go through 6 watches, 3 that are obtainable, 2 that we had as grails, and 1 as unobtainium. And there are lots of weird diatribes and goofy humor and stuff in that. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I would suggest it. I think it paced pretty well for a 2-hour long thing. So at least I had fun with it. Let me know if it was good or not, because if it's not, I won't redo it. There's been plenty of ideas I've tried that have been total fails, and I've dropped them off of the list. But But other than that, if you enjoyed the video today, give it a like. It is helpful to the channel. Video description has all the articles we did, not the Trust Fund Baby Watch. You got to go find that one yourself. I was showing you a blog to watches. I think that's on last Saturdays if you need the link. 99 Set Club link is in the chat, or excuse me, in the description. It is in the chat earlier. Likewise, the Discord channel, free to join. It's a place where we type and talk about watches. You can share photos and stuff there. So that's free to everyone to use. So there's an invite in the video description to that. That's all for now. I'm going to go get lunch. You all go do whatever you need to do for the rest of the weekend. Have a really good one. Take care, everybody. See you later.